Okay, we're recording. Hi, Claire.
Hi.
Thanks for meeting me. Oh, I see her in the background. Thanks for meeting me to chat about your birth experience.
Of course.
So I wanted to start with conception, not necessarily the act of, but just like, was it planned? Was it a surprise? What was that experience like for you?
So it was planned for us.
Perfect timing.
Yes, it was like the perfect timing. We had I wasn't really sure if I like wanted to have kids at all. And then all of a sudden, once I was sure, I was like, I feel like we need to do this now. Like this is the right time. and so and so we, just I've been charting and I kind of knew about when I would be ovulating. And I was like, it's probably going to take us like a year. And the second cycle that we tried, we got pregnant.
Great, fast.
Yes.
And did you guys tell people right away? Did you wait?
Well, I wanted to wait until the 10, 12 week mark. So we waited that long to tell my family, except for my sister. I told my sister pretty early on. But Jared was so excited, he could not help himself. And he told several of his friends pretty early on, which pissed me off at the time, but it's kind of a yes and no.
I was like, I can picture that's his personality.
Yeah, he was really, really excited. He has dad friends. I don't have as many mom friends. And I obviously just, I wanted to be cautious. I knew that, early miscarriages are super common, so I wanted to wait. But he let it slip to a few people, but we didn't make it public knowledge until, we didn't do a social media announcement until I was 20 weeks. And we knew the sex. And we told my family around like 11 weeks.
So you found out that she was a girl?
Yes.
Yeah. What was your pregnancy like? Was it pretty straightforward? Were there any bumps in the road? What was it like?
I would say it was pretty straightforward. I had the classic period of morning sickness. It started around probably 6 or 7 weeks, and I felt pretty sick, not just in the morning, but all day until about like 13 weeks. I want to say that was difficult, but to be expected. You assured me it was a sign of a healthy pregnancy, lots of hormones, so that made me feel better. Snowed.
It's like, even if that's not true, it's good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, well,
nobody
you're
really knows.
really pregnant. Yeah. And yeah, I think that I didn't really run into bumps in the road until like a little later in the pregnancy. I definitely felt that my body had never stretched like that before. And Sloan was head down for most of my pregnancy, right? Like I remember she was head down like really early, and then she just stayed like that. So I just think that there was a lot of pressure in that area, and I had trouble walking. Like if I did too much exercise, or if I did a long ride in the car, which happened quite often for us, I just had a lot of that lightning crotch, or just pain in my gosh, I can't remember what it's called now.
Like symphysis pubis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But that was, mostly I had a really healthy pregnancy. I think a really, really good pregnancy.
Good. At what point did you decide to try for a home birth?
I feel like I'm trying to remember when exactly I did, but I had started with an OB at Sutter because I had just established care there when I first decided to start trying to get pregnant. And it was just whoever was assigned to me, when I was new to the area. And I knew that I wanted to have, you know, a midwife or a doula or something like that. But while I was doing my research and meeting doulas and looking at the birth center options, I looked at all the birth center options in our area. Nothing felt right. The hospital didn't feel right. The birthing centers didn't even feel right. They were beautiful, but I just didn't connect to those places for having my baby. And I really loved our home at the time, our dome home, you know, I just really loved being there. I was there all the time. My dog was there. We don't have a lot of family in the area, so I just felt most comfortable at home. And then meeting you really, I mean, really solidified that for us. We knew that you know, I spoke with you originally about being my doula, you know, but you had a great website and all of your information was amazing for everything that you offered. And I was like, oh, this monitrice thing, you know, sounds really great because I want to stay at home for as long as possible. But I think that I must have been like, I don't even know. It was more than 12 weeks, less than 20 weeks, somewhere in that range when we decided to work together. And when I decided definitely that you were going to be my birth fairy godmother, that sister, that it was going to be a home birth, you know, it wasn't going to be a hospital birth.
Right. Yeah, I remember coming home from the interview with you guys, and I told my husband, I was like, I think I just made friends. Like, I want to hang out with them, even if they don't hire me.
Yeah.
But I felt really attached to the idea of working with you guys.
Yeah. That makes me feel good. We felt the same way. And I had talked to, like, it's not like, you know, you're the first person we talked to, or, you know, the first person in birth work. Like, I had spoken with a lot of people, and and Jared felt so comfortable with you. He was like, I want to work with her. Like, he just knew it. So that felt really good too.
Sweet. What was care like at home, like pregnancy care, prenatals, and anything that stood out to you? Or did you do like congruent care? Like, did you have some appointments with the OB, and like, how did they compare for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I loved the home care. The hospital visits that I had, they had very little overlap. I think like pretty much when I decided to work with you, I had like one more appointment with the OB, and I let her know that, you know, I was going to be switching care. I wasn't super firm. I just told her that I was like I was moving that direction. I was pretty sure that was what I was going to do, you know, and her reaction kind of solidified that that's what I was going to do. So
like, what was her reaction?
Her reaction was, you know, she seemed very concerned. She admitted that most healthy pregnancies don't require any sort of intervention, you know, but she got her whole mood changed, you know, like she seemed actually like personally upset that I had decided to do this, you know, maybe
she felt more offended versus like worried for you.
Yeah, more offended, I would say. Yeah. She did admit, like, we know what to do in an emergency. So sometimes we're just thinking that we're just in the emergency mode, which is like totally honest and fair, you know, but her whole like bedside manner just dropped, you know, and it was like she took it personally, and she kind of maybe thought I was stupid, or I don't know, but I hadn't really developed I thought she was a cool person, you know, but we hadn't developed a relationship because all of the appointments we had were like 5 minutes.
Right.
They weighed me, took my blood pressure, and that was it, you know? So
yeah, I remember you telling me about meeting with her and how she felt and everything, and you handed me a piece of paper they had handed you, which I was expecting it to like match what she was saying, and it was like the total opposite about how safe home birth is. And I was
Mhm.
like really impressed with the letter because I was like, oh, what does this say? And I was like, oh wow, this is like congratulations on your upcoming home birth. It had wonderful things to say about home birth.
Yeah, it was pretty spot on, and it didn't seem like a big deal. But yeah, I was kind of looking to see what she thought, or if she had any suggestions for care, or what to do in the event of a transfer, anything like that. And that just wasn't there. That wasn't really a part of that conversation. We did decide to keep the anatomy scan, the anatomy ultrasound, the 20 weeks ultrasound, but that was the last kind of formal prenatal care that we had that wasn't with you at home. And I loved the experience of being at home. I felt like we would spend an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours together because you're awesome and you just listened to me for as long as I wanted. And my husband could be there more often than he would have been able to if we had been doing it at the hospital or wherever, because we both worked from home, but he had a pretty demanding schedule. So towards the end, he wasn't at even our visits as much, but he was able to be more involved than he would have been. And I really loved that there were always the mainstream options available to me with you. I don't know if that's the word, the Western, I don't know.
Standard of care, like anything you
Yeah.
wanted, you could have.
Yes, anything that I wanted, I could do. And I was never, you were really great about not like placing your like personal opinion on, what I should do. There were a few times when I was like, well, what did you do? Or, I like really pushed you, and you would be honest with me, but you mostly just gave me a lot of information about like the pros and cons of every decision. And you never made me feel weird about wanting to do anything. So it was a wonderful experience.
Good. Well, take me to like the moment you realized you were in labor and what that whole early labor was like for you.
Yeah, so it was the middle of the night on, I think it was a Sunday, maybe like 1:30 in the morning, probably it was technically the 9th at that point, maybe. I don't even know. What is time? Oh, what's wrong? Look at, say hi.
Hi, Sloan.
Hi. We're
You
talking
look so much
about
like
you.
your daddy right now.
We're talking about you. You look like your daddy, yes. And I was so wanting to have my labor start, because we were at almost, we were at +6, 40 +6, and was worried about not being able to deliver at home. I'd been doing all the spinning babies, and I've eaten some dates and trying to be active. But I also had a big list of things to do. And it's like, as soon as the list was done, that's when I like went into labor, which I hear happens. So it was the middle of the night, or like 1:30 in the morning. And I felt like maybe I was really juicy throughout my pregnancy. I had a lot of fluid, like just fluid or whatever. So I felt like kind of a rush of that, but it felt like a little more than usual. And I got up and, went to the bathroom, and it didn't seem like anything, and I didn't want to get excited, that anything was happening, because I had not felt anything. I had felt no Braxton Hicks, nothing at all. And we weren't doing checks either. So I was just like completely blind at this point,
Checks meaning like vaginal exams.
Exactly. No vaginal exams, none of that. Had not tried to, strip my membranes or anything like that. And sorry, she's crawling over to Luna. They're really great together, but I always keep an eye on them.
Luna and I, if I remember right, are we birthday buddies?
You guys are.
We are.
You guys are.
Luna is the pup.
Yes. Anyway, so I got back in bed because I knew that if it was starting, I needed to rest. And I started feeling some cramping. So I really tried to just sleep, but it was hard. I was able to stay in bed, but I, did kind of feel the need to like breathe through what I was feeling a little bit. And that just continued on. I didn't really sleep, but I just stayed in bed. And then around like 6:30 or 7 in the morning, Jared was starting to wake up, and I had like typed out what I was gonna like text to you in my notes app. And I told him, because I noticed that it was happening about every like 15 minutes. It seemed pretty consistent, it wasn't like a little feeling and then I wouldn't feel anything for like an hour or so. So I'm like, okay, this seems like it could be something that's happening. And he, of course, got really excited. And I still at that point was like, well, no, I was like, hold on, this could go on for days. Do you want me to keep going?
Story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This part of the story. Okay. And then, I started to like get up. This was around like, it was pretty early still, but I felt like I wanted to like take a bath and relax a little bit, because I didn't feel like my labor was fully starting, but I just like wanted to relax. And I got in the bath and I started noticing that they were coming more often. So I started timing them, and I think they were down to like every like 5 to 7 minutes or something like that. And I was like, oh, this is like getting kind of intense. Like this is happening, So I told Jared, and my mom was there at the house with us downstairs. And I was like, I need to eat something. Like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And I had this whole plan that I was going to like shower and put my makeup on, and I needed to eat. I needed to like have my strength because I hadn't eaten anything since the last night. And so I had him make me some oatmeal. And at this point I had sent you like, I had like a timer app, and I sent you all of my data, and it was getting down there in the minutes. I don't know how low it was, but it was, somewhere between every like 3 to 5 minutes. And you were like, stop timing them. You don't need to time them. Just, focus on yourself, because I was focusing on timing them. Jared just didn't know how to use the timer app, and he was like, of course, already like in his own world at this point with what was going on. So I got out of the bath, and the bath had already like was helping me cope with it, so when I got out of the bath, I start really feeling that I was having contractions. And it's so funny, I like put my facial like tinted moisturizer on, thinking that I was going to be able to like put that on, maybe put some mascara on or something. And I was just like, oh God, no, like I can't even do this, and I had like a birthing like outfit, like a I did not get into that at all. And I brushed my teeth, and brushing my teeth made me throw up. I threw up twice, and I just stayed in the bathroom leaning over the counter until I was like, I think it's time for Sophia to come, because this is like really intense and happening really quickly. So I just remember the best way for me to cope with the contractions at that point was to like lean over the counter and shake my legs and like kind of like twerk. It helped so much. I was like, oh, this is like, I have to do this. But I don't remember if it was you or if it was Jared who were like, that's great, but like, you can't do this forever. You're going to get tired, doing that motion, which is totally true, and in hindsight, definitely true for how long it ended up lasting. But I felt like,
I think that's been Jared. I don't remember saying that, but
yeah, I don't think you would have said that to me.
No twerking.
Yeah, keep on it. And I think that's also around when I started oming or mooing or whatever, as that, and that was not planned at all. That was just like the vibration. And I'm almost finished with the yoga teacher training right now, and I'm like realizing I'm making the connections, like how that vibration, that internal vibration, sound vibration, like helped me labor so much, you know? So yeah, I think I got to a point where I couldn't talk to you on the phone anymore, and you came along and you saw me in my state. You were like, yeah.
In your state.
But you never said that. You were just like, awesome, everything's great, you know? You're just like leaving me alone. And that's something that I didn't know how it was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to want people around or not. And Luna or Sloan, leave her alone. So
confusing
cute.
the kids.
Yeah, they're being very good, but I'm just worried that Sloan's gonna piss her off at some point. Oh, now she's getting the licks. And then I wanted us to fill up the tub because I was just like not comfortable. I didn't like sitting on the toilet. I didn't like being on all fours. I didn't like being on the birthing ball. Walking was difficult. It just felt very intense. And like I said, like the most comfortable I was leaning over the sink and shaking my legs through my contractions and oming with them. And they were like a minute apart. I mean, it felt like constant, honestly, at that point. So we had our birthing tub and you guys filled it up and I got in, and that's where I stayed for a long time.
Yeah, so tell me how it was getting really into labor, and like things that you remember that were just like really powerful moments for you, and also anything that was maybe scary or defeating feeling or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, I had all of like the thoughts in my head that I'd kind of prepared myself with, like there are women all over the world doing this with me right now, you know, like at this very moment there are women laboring. That was really helpful for me. Breathing through it and like having those like techniques and things to focus on, like it really made it very manageable. Being in the birthing tub was like, I lowered into it and it was like, oh, you know, it was so great because I could still really feel, you know, the contractions, but I just had the freedom of movement, you know, being able to like just move in whatever position I wanted was really
that buoyancy it gives you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I did feel like I wish that I had like prepared more with Jared on ways that he could like assist me. We had taken a course and talked about a few things, but he just like wasn't ready and he wasn't prepared. And I ended up, you know, I did want him there, but I was very much so like in my own world, as they say, you know, there's like a veil, you know, between you and everyone else. And I remember like I noticed my mom like staring at me and, and I just like, get away from me, you know, like I didn't want my mom to be around me at that time because I just felt like, you know, her eyes were on me and she was like worrying, you know, and I just didn't want to be stared at, you know, gawked at everything. I love my mom, but she just like is the most concerned person about me, you know, so I didn't want to have concern being what was around me. And I did feel like, okay, at some point, you know, I saw that it was getting dark outside. And in my head, I tried not to have too many assumptions about how my labor would progress, but it felt so intense from first thing in the morning, you know, I really felt like I should have been getting close, you know, at that point and really feeling her coming down more than I was. I did have like my mucus plug came out or parts of it, I would have like parts kind of coming out in the birthing tub. And so I felt like, okay, I'm progressing. But I just wasn't feeling like she was like really coming down, and I started feeling the urge to push a lot, like a huge urge to push, but I felt like I was like trying to talk to her, like, come down, like you can come out, and there was this like resistance that I didn't know why it was there, So as time wore on, I did start to just kind of lose a little faith or hope that things were progressing correctly. And I started to worry because my mom had really fast, labors, and I just didn't think that it was going to take that long, for me, even though some people labor for days, or people have, contractions for a long time, or for, weeks, but it just felt very intense. And like I should have been progressing. So while I felt like everything that I had around me was exactly what I needed, I did start to feel like something wasn't quite right, and I didn't know what to do. I was like asking my body to do what it's supposed to do, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah. So what happens then if it's not happening?
Yeah. So the urge to push just kept getting stronger and stronger, and there were concerns about Sloane's heart rate. You guys were checking her, and there were certain positions that she didn't like. She didn't like when I was on the toilet. She didn't like, I don't remember what, I think in the birthing tub for the most part it was okay, but there were like when you would do some checks and you would be like, like we need to check again in another like 5 or 10 minutes. You didn't want to wait like a longer time, I think. And maybe I'm wrong about this. This is just like what
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I actually do remember, I actually tell this story a lot to families I'm working with, where we had checked, I can't remember which was first, but her heartbeat was a little flat, just like 140, 140, 140, 140, like not a lot of variable. Mm-hmm. And your blood pressure was a little high, your pulse was a little high, and you had like a low grade fever even. And mm-hmm. we decided to like give you a bunch of electrolytes and just like chug it, even though you were doing really well with water. We've all felt like you were really hydrated, and we did electrolytes, and like 20 minutes later everything was better, like her heart rate had good variability, all your vitals were normal. So I share that with clients sometimes to show how a complication doesn't always mean you have to like go to the hospital. A lot of times we can resolve it at home.
Totally.
Yeah. So that moment stood out for me.
That's great.
Like, wow, just like chugging a bunch of electrolytes. Like we didn't have to do an IV or anything like that, just like
totally
take care of it all.
Yeah, and I felt very, very much so taken care of. I had like no appetite though. Like it was really hard for me I remember we'd be like, Claire ate a blueberry this hour. Like that, you were excited. You would just like feed me blueberries and I'd eat a blueberry, but I wasn't very compliant with eating. And
we were drinking a lot, or just that early when you brushed your teeth?
Just early. I threw up once, maybe twice, but it was all within that like, earlier time frame, because I was in the bathroom. Remember, it was like light, and I hadn't even gotten in the tub yet. So I didn't. After I was in the birthing tub, I never threw up, but that's because there wasn't anything there. You know, I didn't eat, and I was drinking a lot of coconut water, and we made Labor Aid, so I was having that. And yeah, at some point we decided to because I was having that urge to push, and we all kind of thought that like things were going to be moving forward, and then it just like wasn't, you know. So I did get out of the tub, and that was really difficult, being out of the tub. We checked me. I think, I can't remember what came first, if like, yeah, we checked me. I was at like 8.5. I think around that time we confirmed that I did, my cervix was like really puffy. We tried
pushing.
Yeah, from the pushing, from the urge to push. So I was trying really hard not to push, but it was like, it felt like my contractions were constant, you know, like there was just so much pressure. You were like coaching me really well to like try to like let go of the contraction when it ended, but it just felt like never ending, you know, like it couldn't really feel the beginnings and ends of them. I could feel when it was like most intense, but
they just kept like lingering.
Yeah, because of all that pressure, I think that was there. So we had Jen, wonderful Jen, from Acorn, come, my chiropractor, to see if maybe we could adjust me. I got in the shower, which felt good, but was still really difficult. And I think that standing wasn't an ideal position for Sloan either. You know, we like moved me around. We tried flipping me upside down. We did the rebozo. We laid me on my side in bed, and this is like the middle of the night, and everyone's just like wilting around me, but you guys were still doing so amazing. And like, I remember for a while, like Morgan massaged, I think it was Morgan, right? Was like pushing on my hip on the side and like massaging my like butt and hip and thigh, because when I laid on my side, my contractions were like really intense, and we were hoping that that would like, you know, get me the rest of the way, you know. But
yeah, and we didn't say Morgan was the other midwife who was assisting me at your birth. Yeah.
Yes, she was wonderful as well. You guys just have such like amazing healing hands, you know, like if I ever have another child, I would like to have Jared just like take honestly a course in just like touching in labor, because like he just didn't know what to do, and like just the littlest things that you guys would do would make me feel so held and supported, you know. Even just kind of like holding my head, you know, or my face just made me feel so much more calm. And I took a homeopathic. You guys gave me a homeopathic to try to reduce the puffiness, the swelling in my cervix. And I remember, you know, we decided, okay, let's let her get back in the birthing tub, because that was where I was most comfortable.
Yeah, we were just in like problem solving mode, just like,
yeah,
try this. Yeah.
Let's try something else. And when I stood up out of the bed where we had been doing the side work, I had another rupture of my waters or something. It was like, I'm guessing it was, because I had been out of the tub for a while. So it wasn't like fluid that had like gone up me or anything at that point, because I'd been out. So had that. It was dark, but you guys got the, you know, checked the fluid. And I think at that point you did confirm there was meconium in my waters.
Which made sense because of the heart rate dips. Yeah.
Yeah. And that I was, you know, +6 and 7 at that point. So yeah, then I got back in the birthing tub, and that's when it became like unbearable I like could not stop from pushing, you know. It just like, I remember that's when you started, and maybe you had said this before, but I really distinctly remember you coaching me on breathing like I'm blowing out a birthday candle, you know, more shallow, so I'm not like letting my whole body kind of like release into the pushing, because I couldn't stop pushing. And yeah, contractions kept coming, but it's okay. That's what happens to me like every time
I'm on call. Gotta keep
yeah. That always happens to me. I always like forget to snooze the notifications on my computer.
Yeah, I have it off here, but it like connects to my computer.
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, at that point, I think you had said, I think you guys were like, we think you're like fully dilated on one side, but then like not on the other. And there's still this puffiness. And I did not feel her coming down. Like, I don't remember if you probably have this in my notes, but she was, well, I don't know what stage I think it's called, or
Station.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Station.
yeah, I could look.
And she wasn't there. She wasn't there yet. So, that was, I think, around like 4 or 5 in the morning on the 10th. And I started to feel like I can't do this anymore. And we discussed it, and that was still, I remember even just like letting anybody like letting you use the Doppler to check Sloane's heart rate was like difficult for me, you know, like I like didn't even want to have to like stay kind of like still or like be in the right position for you to do that. But I believe her heart rate, you know, was still concerning, you know. So at that point we were like, you're not progressing. Do you want to try to go in and see if we can induce to get you the rest of the way, you know? And so we have more consistent monitoring for her, so we know that she's doing okay, you know, and then hopefully you can, you know, still deliver vaginally. And so I was like, yeah. So getting down.
Kind of felt like things were building, like layering on top of each other. And there was a time when we could resolve it, you know, like when you drank the electrolytes and everything got better, but then it just felt like, okay, now we're doing things and like position changing isn't really working. And
yeah. I felt like we had tried everything, you know, like, and I felt like I had been really motivated to try everything. And then when it was like, our only option left is to just keep waiting, you know, here, that felt challenging for me because I felt like we had done so much, you know, I had worked so hard in all of these different things. And throughout my pregnancy, I had like done so, you know, with like the acupuncture and the chiropractic and, you know, everything. I just felt like, okay, my body should be doing this. Like it's not for some reason. For some reason, things aren't progressing. And I had been like quite far along, you know, for a while. So you guys really made me feel like, you know, we'll support you in whatever you want to do. Like if you want to stay and keep doing this, that is totally fine. But we're kind of out of options with how to address whatever is.
It would just be doing all the things we already tried, you know, and just hoping something worked.
Right. Yeah. And I think that maybe if I thought that I had prepared myself for like the possibility that it would last that long, but I really did not believe that it would take that long, you know? And so I was like physically like seeing of course you have all this adrenaline, you know? So I wasn't like sleepy, tired, but seeing everybody else be so tired, you know, and seeing like my husband sleep and my, you know, and you guys take rests as you of course needed to, and nobody ever left me alone. I was always like so supported, you know, but I could just see, I could just see the, you know, the time that we had been there and the fatigue of my labor, not just on me, but on everybody else, you know, and I felt like I did feel like I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like I can't do this anymore. And I was concerned for Sloane at that point, but I almost like, and this will come into play more once I'm in the hospital, but like I was beginning to completely be removed from I'm having my baby. Like it was like, I was losing that connection to feeling like I'm giving birth right now. Like I just like, it wasn't even there anymore. It was like, this is just a thing that's like going on and on and on. And I don't feel close to meeting my baby at all. Like, even though I'm supposed to be pretty close by this point. So Transferring was difficult. Just luckily we were so close. Thank God we were so close to Sutter, because just getting down the stairway, I was still having those contractions that felt like there was pretty much no break in between. We would like get down a couple of stairs and I have to stop and then get down a couple of more and then stop. And I didn't put my pants on. I remember not putting my pants on to go and just having that parka jacket on, which felt awesome because it was really cold outside and I had been so hot in the tub, and just like with everything, feeling that cold on my legs and like my belly and everything actually felt really good. But I, kneeled on the front seat and just held on to the front seat backwards. And we went over to Sutter, and you were totally prepared and knew just what to do and had all of my information. And I had already been, a patient at Sutter before. So check-in seemed to me to be pretty easy. But it did feel like, for me personally, by the time I got into the hospital room, it was like, I just didn't even know what to do. Like I didn't know what I didn't want anymore. I didn't know what I did want. Like I did just kind of like succumb to the hospital experience, It was like, well, how about we give you some nitrous so that you can, while we're kind of poking and prodding you to see if we can like move your cervix out of the way to like figure out where you are, just to calm you down. And I remember it was so funny because you were like, that's the first time I've seen you smile in 24 hours. When I had that. And that was good. It was a relief, it's not something that I ever planned for myself.
Yeah. It takes the edge off things.
It did. And I needed to feel like even a little bit like myself in that moment. Cause it was like an out of body experience. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel attached to what was going on anymore. I didn't know what was going on. And I was starting to like kind of lose my nerve a little bit. And, you were so great because I just trusted you so much that, you were advocating for me and you knew what I wanted. I had written out, my whole hospital transfer plan and what I wanted and all of those things. And you were reminding me of that and speaking up for me. And my mom was there too, so my mom was like, all in that mode. And Jared was just like tired and wanted a burrito. So I'm really glad that you and my mom were there. I don't know if I have like just like a bad vision of Jared from that time or what. Maybe he was much better than that, but I'm just like, Jared just wanted a burrito and wanted to sleep. So yeah, got the nitrous, they came in. I had like how many people, it felt like so many people were coming into that room. Like it was like the middle of the night or it was really early in the morning. So I don't think there was like anyone else. There was maybe like one other person on the floor. I can't remember.
I don't think it was very busy.
Yeah, it wasn't busy. So there were like people wanting to like come in and see the home birth transfer, they wanted to get their eyes on this idiot, or whatever. They were pretty chill.
That's actually one of the transfers that sticks out in my mind as being like so wonderful. The staff there like really treated like me as a teammate, and really included me and like, what do you think? And like they really were welcoming, and it didn't seem like they were making it be like, see what you get for trying that,
No, they were great. And that the labor and delivery staff and everything like that, like for the most part, I was very pleasantly, surprised with like that experience. Obviously my recovery, I wasn't as like happy with that, but that's just kind of how it becomes when you become a number and there's shift changes and they're trying to check their boxes and whatever. But yeah, I did feel cared for there, and two different people, I think, wanted to feel and see if they could like move, my cervix, manually get me dilated the whole way. And there was some disagreement about how much I was dilated, based on feeling that, but at least we started doing monitoring on Sloan. I got, catheter, had like everything. Again, felt really no attachment to my body at this point. Like it could have done anything. And I just like didn't even know what was going on anymore. I was just like, I'm tired from all the contractions, and I remember after a while, this one woman came and sat down on the bed and looked at me, and she was like, I think you need to get the epidural and get a C-section. And then she just didn't say anything else. And I was like, is that it? Like, I was like, like she didn't say like anything else. And it just felt like she was going to like tell me all the reasons why,
right.
like, I just felt like, oh my gosh, this is the moment, this is the moment where they're going to explain to me that, why this is safe and why my baby is unsafe if we don't do this and all of those things. And they didn't really say much of that, except for that after monitoring Sloan, I wasn't a candidate for Pitocin or any other, induction options, because they said that, and maybe you can fill in here, but they said that she wouldn't survive a vaginal delivery. They felt like
I think
her heart rate,
already wasn't doing too well. And so to add anything else, I mean, like when people are induced, if the heart rate does anything funky, they turn it down or shut it off, so they wouldn't start something that would cause her to be in distress when she was already in distress.
Right. Yeah. Right. And the one nurse that had been with me the whole time, and she was like younger, than everyone else. And I just felt we had a good rapport going, and she had been like really, supportive and like, oh yeah, no, we can make this happen. And did kind of help me reconnect to, I'm going to meet my baby soon, like one way or another, and she was like, this is what you need. Like this, she was able to kind of be like looking at her numbers. Mm-hmm. This is what we have to do, like there really is like no other option. And it was the same thing with you, you were like, you knew how much I wanted to have a natural childbirth and all of those things, and you would have supported me in that no matter what, and you had also been through, this before. So having that trust and everything, it was easy to make the decision and to continue forward from that point.
It was kind of like it became like it was at home, where the only other option was to just keep doing what we were doing. There were more options available to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Birth, how was that? Like, tell us. Yeah. Like,
well, hi, Sophia.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Too.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. This is totally casual.
Well, I remember that as soon as I got the epidural, I started feeling really nauseous, very, very nauseous and scared about getting a C-section. I've never had major surgery before. So again, I was still very disconnected from the concept that I was about to meet my daughter for the first time. Like
it was just about, I'm about to have surgery.
Yeah. Like it just stopped being about that, which really sucks, like it does. It really, really sucks. But I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and it's going to be fine. People do it all the time, but I was scared. And luckily it wasn't COVID times yet. So Jared was able to be there and you were able to be there. And if you weren't there, it would have been so much worse, because I did feel very nauseous. And once it happened, which we'll get there, Jared was with her, and I would have been alone, to get everything finished up. And that ended up being challenging. But when they wheeled me into the operating room, I can't remember what song was playing, but like the music playing was like, it was weird. I just remember like it being kind of weird because there were so many people in there and they're listening to music while they're like getting ready to do this, And I was just like, what is
another disconnect that this isn't about like
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they started preparing my stomach, for the incision for the surgery. And I could really feel everything. I could feel the tugging a lot and still feel it because it felt like they were kind of rough. And I don't know what they were like putting on, was the iodine or something that they put over your stomach that felt thick and kind of tugging. I don't know. But they started testing to see if the anesthesia was strong enough, and I could feel all the pricking that they were doing. I was like, ow, when they were like doing the pinching, and they were like, oh.
Yeah.
They were like, oh no.
Not working.
Yeah, I was like, what? So that was kind of scary too, to have the medical professionals be like, oh, that's not right.
Working.
It's not working. And the anesthesiologist he was funny. He was like, okay, like, I think actually he had me give myself more back in the room because there was like a button where you press the button and you can't keep pressing it, but you can press it once to give yourself more. Cause he was like, you shouldn't be able to feel your contractions anymore. And I was like, I can still feel them. And he was like, okay, hit that button again. Mm-hmm. And then when I was on the table, I still needed more. So he was like, we're giving you the full amount. You need, for some reason, you need the full amount. And this is the most bizarre thing. We were the labor and delivery nurse that I'm talking about, who made me feel very comfortable. She was like, apparently people who are like freckle complected and redheads process opiates faster or drugs faster, and they need more, and their bodies just process them faster, and they tend to need more, which is interesting because in my experience, I've never really felt like super sedated by any sort of like drugs that I'd taken in the past. I had kind of felt like, more was usually needed, or I'd like come out of it, more so. So
yeah, I've heard that too.
It's so weird, right? My other people, when they hear that, they're like, what? I've never heard that before. So anyway, they gave me quite a bit more, and I think that's when the nausea got even worse. So you had peppermint oil for me to smell, which was like a godsend, because I did really feel like I was going to throw up, and I was like shaking. They started, and at that point, I couldn't really feel. I could feel like some tugging and everything. I didn't want to see. They had the plastic up so that I couldn't see what they were doing, but you were taking pictures, and I'm so grateful that we have that picture and video. Like, we still watch those all the time and just cry, and it's so amazing to have that, because I did kind of feel like everything was happening so fast and I didn't know what was going on. But when I saw her for the first time, that's what just like brought me like to reality, because
chills.
Yeah, just like, oh my gosh, there she is. That's her. I totally recognize her. Like, that's my baby. Look at how long and big she is. I just like, it was such an amazing moment. And for Jared too. And
just a year ago.
Yeah. A little over. Yeah. Oh no, not quite. We're almost there. Yeah. 1 year ago. And then, I didn't get to like have her, right away. But she was eventually brought and laid on my chest, and I got to have that moment with her, and she grabbed my nose, and you took that amazing picture, and
the famous picture. You went viral.
God. Still shows up. Like,
I know. I get tagged in it so many times. So
great. That's so great. I'm so glad for you. Yeah, I have people from like different countries follow me, like worldwide. Like, that was such an
Yeah.
amazing photo. It feels really good that it touched so many people, you know, who have had that experience, you know. And yeah, at that we could see that she had red and what looked like curly hair, so that was really exciting for me because I really wanted to have a little redhead baby like Jared. So I was so happy and so excited, but I wanted to wrap it up. I wanted to get out of that operating room. I wanted to be able to feel my body again, because that was really disorienting to not be able to lift my arms, because I had to have so much of the medicine. And then the hormones and everything, I started shaking pretty bad, and, you know, just being like, I want this to be over. And that's where you just like really got me through that time, where I had to be away from her for, I don't know, it was like 45 minutes to an hour maybe it took for them to finish up, because they accidentally sutured my bladder to my uterus. And they're like discussing it. I'm like,
yeah, they had to wait for a person to like either check it to figure out if like what to do for the repair. And yeah, we were just like, oh my God, you're kidding.
Yeah. And you were so great. You were like good at like being like, how much longer is this going to take? Like making me feel like, okay, someone is like communicating for me and not leaving me just like, I'm just not even a person here, you know, that they're working on, because they were like afraid, I think, to interact with me too. Cause obviously like there were issues. So they didn't.
We were like, you know, do a good job though. Don't rush it. Like,
right, because I've had a cousin who they like rushed it, and then she had to have surgery again. Like they like pinched something when they were like sewing her back up. So I'm glad, you know, that.
Be thorough.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And communication is good.
Yeah. So eventually we got out of there.
All your organs were where they needed to be.
They were all in the right spot. Yeah. And I was really like so motivated at that point to like get to each next step, you know, be able to hold my baby, because I could hold her, but it was difficult. I did need like a little bit of an assist, just because the loss of feeling in my arms, and getting that feeling back, getting out of those cuffs, those leg cuffs, squeezing your legs, you know, those were horrible and itchy. and they told me that it was going to take it could take up to like 6 hours or something to get the feeling back in my body, but it ended up being like 3 hours. So again, my body is like processing. So crazy. And then, yeah, I mean, it was a really awesome moment connecting with her and breastfeeding her for the first time, because we really didn't have any trouble with that, you know, and that was a concern with the C-section.
It's nice to have some blessings after that.
Yeah. And we've only had blessings since then, you know, like we've just been so lucky with everything with her. And she was a great, you know, breastfeeder. And, you know, I just wanted to, you know, it's like, okay, being able to get the catheter removed so I can get out of bed, you know, what can I do to get discharged from the hospital as quickly as possible? That was my new goal, to go home, because the bonding and the really feeling like, okay, I've had my baby didn't really happen until I got home, because you can't really rest in the hospital because they're coming in so often, and wanting to tell you what to do, you know, with your baby. And, you know, it just, they're like, oh, well, a lot of moms want to stay in the hospital longer, you know? And I was just like, I don't, you know, I never wanted to be here in the first place.
How long were you there for before you got to go home?
48 hours from when she was born. And that was like the minimum.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it felt like so long, and it like things like it's crazy to me that, you know, or it's interesting to me that people stay longer than that, you know. but they needed me to stay for 2 nights because I had the C-section. They wanted to monitor me and take my blood. And my blood pressure is typically on the low side, as you probably remember, and it was pretty low after I gave birth. So I think they were like a little concerned about that, but not really. They just were like wanting to, yeah. And they wanted to do the fundal checks on me, and that was horrible because of the C-section, scar there. And that's when in that last 24 hours, I started kind of losing it because I couldn't sleep, because they'd come in every 30 minutes. It felt like someone would just burst into my room without knocking and try to wake my baby up if she was sleeping and push on my stomach and not check if I was like on time with my like pain medication first. I was just like, I was trying to be that like compliant, perfect patient, like, thank you, and I just was starting to lose it at that point. So, but by the time we were going home, I was starting to feel like myself again, I was like, I still, had to take it easy, but I was ready to get dressed and take a shower and go home and have Christmas, and have,
so close.
get in my bed and introduce her to Luna. And it was awesome. Once we got home, I felt like I could start bonding with her and feeling like a mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got home, and what was postpartum recovery like for you? You said breastfeeding was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
How body healing from surgery?
Yeah, so that definitely was challenging at times, but I did do really well because I had so much support. My mom was there, and my husband, Jared, did take 2 weeks off of work. So my bedroom was on the top floor, the second floor, so I just stayed up there because with the C-section, they say not to use stairs at all. Or if you have to make it like you go down for the day and you stay downstairs until it's time to go to bed. So I pretty much just stayed in bed. Occasionally after the first like few days, I think I would come down sometimes, kind of like come down in the morning, hang out for the day, and then go up. But I think the first time I did that, the next day I was like, it was like too soon, I needed to like stay up in bed the next day. But I mainly with healing with the C-section, it was like the pain meds didn't really address the ongoing pain that would happen. So I stopped taking the pain meds as soon as I could, but it was holding her, and if I had to like sitting up in bed or twisting at all, that was challenging, so I'm really glad that I was breastfeeding and we're having a great time with breastfeeding, but doing that makes the recovering from the C-section a little bit more challenging, and that lasted, it was until probably like 8 weeks postpartum that I wasn't feeling like pain in my incision area. And I still would feel some pain, but like consistently, like, when twisting and everything. And I actually got a really bad rash on my stomach from the belly bands. My skin was really itchy and it was still numb. So I like itched my stomach really bad, and I had a rash, and I ended up getting this great hemp CBD salve from Hannah that really helped with my skin. But because of that, I just wasn't really able to wear a belly band like would have.
Hannah's a local doula, and she's I believe like partnered up with Morgan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
For anyone listening who's curious who Hannah was. And she's an herbalist. You met with her prenatally too and got some herbs from her, right?
Yes, she's a wonderful person, and she just listened and talked to me as well, which was amazing. We met up and had tea, and she made me a prenatal blend and then also a postpartum tea blend. And she was able to recommend some CBD products as well for me to use. And yeah, I just wasn't, I didn't feel as like stable with my incision as would have been helpful in being able to wear a belly band, but I just like couldn't keep it on. It wasn't helping. It was just hurting. So I just limited getting up and down and going up and down the stairs and doing that. And my bleeding, my lochia or whatever it's called, I didn't have that much. I mean, it slowed down. My stomach was, compressing, like everything was progressing pretty quickly, I felt, because I was just staying in bed. I made this like Ayurvedic porridge that I was eating for the first one. My mom made it for me, but I had like the recipe and everything and all ready to go. And I was eating that and just trying to really, nurture myself here. And I didn't have a job or anything that I needed to go back to because I got laid off of that right before.
That was the most stressful part of your pregnancy, I remember.
Yeah, that was awful, but it was all supposed to happen that way. Everything was supposed to happen the way that it did. I did have a little bit of engorgement when my milk was coming in because my milk I think it came in pretty fast, and I did have some engorgement, but I just nursed more. Yeah. I just would double up on that side and it went down, and there was some pain, with getting, my nipples, just getting used to nursing. And Sloan did really well with sleeping longer stretches too. She really went for the binky right away. I think she even tried her first binky in the hospital, which was a godsend because that would allow me to sleep, for a longer stretch, get like a 3-hour stretch every once in a while. That happened pretty early on. You
didn't find that affected your milk supply or anything like that? Good.
No. It might have been responsible for, an engorgement. It's like if I got too much sleep, I'd wake up and I'd be like, or I'd, leak all over myself, while I was sleeping. But that was all, very early on. I feel like everything evened out, and we got into a good flow pretty quick. And I remember like when you came to see me, and you and Morgan came to see me in my bed, and I was like, I just feel like I'm not, taking care of her because, I'm in bed and I'm not getting to, I'm not changing her diapers or like anything right now, and you guys were like, don't worry, you will.
Anytime.
And that's certainly correct. I was very lucky to have an amazing postpartum experience. But we did end up moving when I was 6 weeks postpartum. So that was an interesting experience. And I did get sick. I did have like some sort of upper respiratory, cold, but right at that time, Sloan started sleeping through the night, which she doesn't even, do now, but she was like this 5-week-old baby that was like, I sleep through the night. And I'm like, okay, and it was like everything happened when I needed it to happen, because I was sick and I needed to sleep and heal, and we were moving and we needed her to just sleep, at certain times. So, and then when we moved, we drove for, the drive from Sonoma to Southern Oregon is about 7 hours, and Sloan just slept the entire car ride. I mean, she was just like an amazing, perfect baby for us. We never had any problems. Mm-hmm. She was perfect. So it was all worth it.
So sad when you said you were moving. And it made so much sense, to be with family and everything. But I was like, selfishly, like, no, wait, we're supposed to keep hanging out after all this.
I know. It is sad. I love, it's funny to think, when I got her birth certificate and everything, I'm like, yeah, you were just like me, you were born in California, but then, or at least for now, we don't really know what's next for us, but your it's basically like you're an Oregon, you know, an Oregonian
Mhm.
through, even though you're born in California. And yeah, it was just, everything was the right, what?
The story repeats.
Yes, of course, as it always does. And, you know, it was just, now in hindsight, all of these things were like kind of like kicking us in the direction, you know, sometimes it hurt a little bit, you know, but we were being like forced into the place where we needed to be for the world to suddenly end, you know, or whatever.
Right.
Like, it was like, we would have ended up there if we hadn't really humbled ourselves and been like, we need help.
Mm-hmm.
It just would have, our hand would have been forced
Mm-hmm.
when, you know, the pandemic
Yeah.
happened. We would have been up here anyway, but it would have been, we're running out of money and there's no options, and we, you know, like, it would have been like, it just would have been a disaster.
And
so,
she probably wouldn't have slept the whole ride.
no,
You had the sweet
No.
spot.
yeah, exactly. It just, you know, it all happened exactly how it was supposed to.
Well, it's been almost a year. Do you have any reflections on the, like, why didn't she come out? Or do you think about those things? Do you have any like intuitive things that have come to you over the past year? Sometimes it just always will remain a mystery.
Yeah, I mean, it at this time, it does still feel like a mystery to me. You know, I'd be lying if I said that I was completely over it. You know, like when I hear about people, you know, having their babies and who don't even care about whether it's in a hospital or at home or if it's natural or whatever, and they just have this glorious, natural, quick birth, and I'm jealous, you know, I can't help but be jealous. I feel that loss, you know, and there was a time, I was like, okay, like, you know, I definitely feel like blame myself sometimes, like what could I have done different? Maybe I should have like fought against what I was feeling in my body, that it was like time to push and everything. Maybe I should have fought against that. Like, is it my fault? You know, all of these things. But I know that it wasn't my fault. And I know that she was born the way she was supposed to. And that's just what what our story is. And so I really don't have anything where I'm like, oh, like, this is why it was supposed to happen this way. But I do have things where I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that I was open and that I pursued having this home birth experience. Like, I knew that it was something that I wanted, but it was a decision that I made because I knew that it might not work out and I could transfer to a hospital right across the street. If we had been like 30 minutes away from a hospital or 45 minutes away from a hospital, personally, I wouldn't have probably decided to have a home birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I believe in home birth working like most of the time for people, but there was something in my intuition that was like, it's safe to do this because this is a very real possibility that I might need to transfer the hospital. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that was a part of like my plan, and that I did consider, you know, what I wanted in the event of having a C-section and all of those things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your whole story.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. It was so good to see you too, and it was kind of divine timing that it's like right close to her birthday, you know.
I know. I kind of was like, oh my gosh, am I ready for this? Can I talk about this?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is hard, you know. Sometimes it is hard to revisit. I feel so much like, I mean, this whole year, it's been the best year of my life. Like, being a mom and having her is like, it's amazing. Yeah. You can't describe it. You have to just experience it to understand how lovely it is. And Jared is the best version of himself as a dad. He's the best dad. They're so cute. Like, it's just the sweetest thing to witness. And it's just been nothing but joy and blessings, you know. But I have some birth trauma, you know. I'm gonna be working through it for as long as I am still unsure of, you know, whether I will have another child or not. You know, it's going to be something that I carry and kind of feel out and just be an inquiry around, you know.
Yeah.
Well, probably for the rest of my life, but
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll have to interview Jared so we can do a little comparison, you know, because
oh yeah, it'll be different. It'll be
so
totally
it's
different.
the same birth, but everybody has a different experience. Yeah, perspective.
Oh, absolutely, especially with him, it'll be totally different.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, love you.
Love you. Bye.